Refurbishing a model traction engine, Part 1. My traction engine returns home. This model Showman's engine is one that I used to own, and now it's mine once again. It was very strange how I bought this traction engine in the first place. It was on eBay, and it didn't fetch the price that the man wanted. I noticed on the listing that the model was in West Yorkshire. So I contacted the seller and asked him whereabouts in West Yorkshire he was, and he said Dewsbury, which is where I live. And when he gave me his actual address, I couldn't believe it. I looked out of the kitchen window, and just down the road I could clearly see his house. So I asked the seller if I could come round and have a look at it. And after a bit of haggling, I came away with the traction engine, although I did walk back to my house to get my car so I could transport it. This model was in a right state when I bought it. 3 people had worked on the engine. The first one was quite good, the second one was also quite good, and the third one hadn't got a clue. Anyway, I rebuilt the engine where it needed rebuilding, mainly the motion and the piston and the regulator and all the top part of the engine. Once I put everything right, I ran it a few times, steamed it a few times, put the canopy on it and sat it on the sideboard. And it lived there for about 3 years, but then I had to sell it. Unfortunately, many years ago, before I knew any better, some bank manager talked me into an endowment mortgage, which was never a good idea because there was a substantial shortfall when it came to maturity. I didn't have the money, so I had to sell a few of my steam engines to make up the shortfall. I sold this traction engine to a friend of mine, and I sold it at quite a low price really when I think back. But it all worked out in the end because this friend of mine stopped collecting steam engines and went on to collecting guns, and he sold me back the traction engine at the same price that I charged him. He kept the traction engine and quite a lot of other models in the cellar, and it now looks like this. In a bit of a sorry state, it's very dirty and quite rusty. But I don't care because I've got my traction engine back. I need to do some work on it, but this is not a problem, is it? And the good news is I'll be making a video of the process in great detail. And talking about great detail, you can see that this traction engine has quite a lot of detail. And most of the parts, as you can also see, are very well made. They're a bit dirty and a bit grimy and a bit oily. Nothing that a bit of elbow grease and cleaning equipment won't put right. I named this traction engine Gloria, after my wife, but sadly she's no longer with us. And no, that is not her in the acid bath. Thankfully, she lives in a flat down the road. I live here in the house with my daughter Charlotte and her partner Daniel, but both Charlotte and Daniel are currently on holiday for another 2 weeks. That's why I have it on the kitchen table. And it gets better. Not only will I be able to work in the house where it's warmer, there is also something else on the kitchen table that is very interesting too. I'll show that in the next video. One thing that really impressed me about this traction engine, and this traction engine was built by an experienced engineer, is this. This is the seat, and it doubles as the emergency hand pump, as well as being useful for filling the boiler in the first place. I'll show you a few of the controls on the traction engine. This is the reversing lever, and next to it is the damper. And this allows you to let more or less air under the fire. And this lever on top of the traction engine is the blower. It's quite a complicated linkage, and it ends up just turning this valve. This is a globe valve that allows a jet of steam to go up the chimney and draw the fire. This is the lever that operates the whistle. I remember spending some time making this steam whistle to get the right tone. This part looks edible, but it's not, it's just a cover for the safety valve. Previously, when I owned this engine, I never appreciated the lining on it, but when I look at it now, having had a go at doing it, I really am impressed. This is the regulator lever, and once again it connects to a linkage. And this linkage, in turn, moves the regulator in and out of the steam chest. This control operates the drain cocks at the cylinder end, once again through a linkage. There is a lot of work in building a traction engine. Here's what happens underneath the cylinder when I move this control. Here's the driver and steersman's eye view. First of all the steering wheel, then the pressure gauge, then the gear selector and the regulator lever. Here's the water gauge and the fire hole door. The piece of pipe that's sticking out of the T-piece that goes into the boiler that connects to the pressure gauge is just so you can run it on compressed air. When I used to steam this engine, I removed the piece of pipe and the U-nin nut and just put a blanking plug over the end of the T-piece. So that's a rundown on all the working parts. As you can see, the engine's really dirty. It's absolutely filthy. This traction engine also has a removable crane attachment. More about this in a later episode. And here's the canopy. I was really worried about this because it took a lot of painting. This canopy is beautiful. It's made from soft soldered brass to a very high standard. I painted it. I also made the wooden box that holds the regulator, which regulates the power from the dynamo to the multiple LED array at each side of the canopy. I also made these. And when the traction engine is running, whether it be on compressed air or steam, it generates more than enough electricity to brightly illuminate the LEDs all around the canopy. They're all different colours. My friend forgot part of the canopy. He's going to send me that up in the post. In this clip, I'm just doing a quick test clean of part of the canopy. I'm using Flash with bleach, which I find to be a really good general purpose cleaner. It's not abrasive, but it really cuts through the filth. After a while, the first segment looks like this. It's not bad. There is a bit of a mark on the paint, but nothing's perfect. To finish this short video, here are a few general shots of the engine with the canopy loosely fitted in place. As I mentioned earlier, this traction engine is far from perfect. But to me there's something really good about it, and the lining is outstanding. The more I look at this lining, the more scary it becomes. The writing on the canopy was my doing. They're just decals, along with the fancy bits at the front and rear. A few viewers must be wondering, why has it got a number plate that says KA666? And the reason for that is simple. People say to me, why has it got a number plate with KA666 on it? Are you a Satanist? No, I'm not. And I say, no, I'm just a musician. And on that note, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful.